Guys, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
doctor.
doctor, I can hear you.
دكتور هو ممكن أسأل سؤال؟
Yeah.
هو في
Karen?
كارن
Yeah.
هو في الميد ترم اكزام هو أنا لازم أعمل 1700 ما ينفعش أقل ولا هو لازم 1000؟
Yeah. It means that you're going to gloss over some details.
أوكي تمام ميرسي يا دكتور.
Okay, guys. So, how's it going with the midterm or with the question? Doing well so far? Can you hear me?
يا دكتور تمام.
Yes doctor we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So just tell me, how's it going?
هو احنا بس لسه شغالين عليه يعني لسه ما خلصناهوش.
It's an individual assignment, right?
ما انا عارفه.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So from this week onwards, we're going to tackle some thematic topics, and we are going to see what kind of theoretical questions these topics may bring about, or how can how literature actually studied these topics and developed some theoretical approaches in order to study these social and political phenomena. So this week we are going to examine in closely electoral behavior and mass politics. And we are going to cover two main themes or sub-themes: voting behavior and its relation to the establishment or the formation of party system, and different forms of political participation or extra systemic or unconventional means of political participation, meaning contentious politics and different trajectories on the political systems, from low intensity like demonstrations and riots to the revolutionary trajectories, and how literature tackles this from different theoretical perspectives or from different theoretical angles. So just to start with, in order to examine mass behavior, so basically you need to gather some information about attitudinal data, and in order to examine or to investigate this kind of political behavior, whether it's contentious or voting or different forms of political participation. And we touched upon this when we studied civic culture or political culture, when we closely examined Almond and Verba. Can you remind me about what we said about political culture? Like, what does it mean, and how they came up with this conception of civic culture? Almond and Verba. Because I'm going to build up from there. Yes. You already like submitted your reaction paper too on this topic. So I need like some interventions on that. How can we define political culture? Guys, before we continue on this, one organizational point that I just want to give you a heads up that you're going to present your term papers. So we're going, after we finish, we're going to have like 3 weeks, like meaning like 6 lectures. It's only for you in order to present your term papers. And this is like, I allocated 5 points from the total grades. I allocated this for presentation and participation. So please try to encourage yourself, to get engaged, as like this is kind of training in order to get to before you get to your presentation of the term papers. So what's culture and what's political culture, and how they develop this notion or concept of civic culture? Can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, we can hear you.
Okay.
دكتور، هو احنا عايزين نعمل participation مع حضرتك، بس هو احنا مش فاكرين قوي بصراحة.
Okay, just try to refresh your mind up. So we talked about yeah.
I think political culture, it's a way of thinking, believing, feeling, social legacy that individual earns from its society.
And what makes it political? That we need to examine something concretely. What's that?
The participation,
or like orientation toward government and political system, right?
Yes.
You remember?
yeah, when Alman and Verba made like surveys.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah.
Dr. Almond and Verba classified the part of political orientations into 3 parts, اللي هو cognitive, affective, and evaluational.
Yeah.
And then they talked about 3 types of political culture.
Yeah.
Subject and I really can't remember the other 2 types, يعني subject and another 2 types.
Okay, civic culture. So what civic culture is?
The way in which political elites make decisions.
If we need to examine like mass behavior, so if you need to examine the political culture of citizens or masses, what exactly?
Like we need to know that the perfect amount of participation, like that will shape the behavior of all people in a certain society.
Yeah. So you need to examine their orientation toward their government and to what extent they may perceive themselves as like agency, or they can have kind of effect on the entire political process, and what kind of information or knowledge they may have, like the cognitive processes, what kind of knowledge they have about the functionality or how the political system operates, and then whether or not they have kind of political efficacy in order to participate, or in order to have some sort of inputs to be transformed into particular political decisions or public policies. And then they talk about civic culture, and they talk about, you know, this congruence between these values, values about, you know, participation and high degree of knowledge and high degree of understanding about how a political system functions, and the functionality or the operationality of the political processes in democratic regimes, or especially in the countries they examined, and the civic culture that existed in the US and the UK. So we talk about like survey data or surveys as tools in order to gather or to collect this information in order to have like examination of citizen values or attitudes. So for example, if and I asked you if you know, like if you had like an introduction about, you know, survey data in your methodology class, and perhaps, you know, it took us like some time in order to for you to get, you know, the message. But these tools, in order to examine people's orientations or citizen orientations and knowledge and understanding, you need to ask these surveys involve or entail some sort of questions that would offer you a precise measurement of these orientations and these understandings. So you may ask about, you may have like survey questions that examine the confidence level in political institutions. So you need to know whether or not citizens or public, you know, they have like a high degree of trust in particular political institutions like government, judicial branch, parliament, the president, or their perception or understanding about, you know, how political system operates based on corruption or checks and balances or accountability. So you need to understand how what kind of orientation or cognitive processes citizens may have in order to examine their political culture or the values and the orientation towards the political system or the government. Or if they have like a high level of political participation, if they are members in particular political parties, so they are affiliated with political parties or they trust political parties, or they actually got engaged or getting engaged in civic associations or like civil society organizations like trade unions or NGOs like feminist organizations or whatever. So you need to examine, you know, what kind of political participation they may have and what kind of means of political participation, whether or not they have like a contact with political candidates in order to articulate their demands or in order to place demands on the existing, on the national government or the existing authority, or they may resort to unconventional means, meaning rights and demonstrations or signing petitions in order to get their voices heard. And what kind of issues they are interested in, like if they perceive like economic problems, corruption, like deficits of democratic governance or democratic rules, what kind of priorities actually they vested in the in a particular context. So why you need to get why you gather this kind of information, or why you bother? Because you are interested in before the literature focuses mainly on the stability or the institutional stability or the stability of the political system, and basically in advanced and Western democracies. So and what happened even in the Western democracies, what happened, like some students movements actually erupted, some sort of a detachment from the existing political parties happened. So it was like scholars started to notice or to observe that it's not about, you know, continuity or stability of the institutions or these values or political culture, but what happened, it was like kind of a change over time, and they needed to examine these kind of it became like these changes actually lied at the heart of the theoretical interest of comparativists and basically even those who studied Western democracies. So they may ask, they may interested, they may get kind of developed kind of interest in disillusionment or detachment from existing political parties or existing political establishment, why radical left or radical right actually emerged in some countries. What happened after this shift in values? So people before they were interested in some material values, like their economic well-being. So that's why they voted for perhaps like left-leaning parties that they promised some welfare, like public good provisions, or some sort of social and economic reforms. So they were interested in this distributive and social economic policies, but over a long period of time, they developed, or these values actually changed, and they developed interest in other non-material values, like the deterioration of the environment. So that's why you notice the emergence of the green parties, for example. So we need to examine how this shift in values affected, the emergence of new parties, or affected the distribution of the policy preferences of the voters, or the values of the citizens, or like disengagement, with civic associations. So why people actually they don't believe or they don't trust, these kind of civic organizations or civic associations. So that's why they didn't develop any kind of engagement approach in these like political and in civic education and these kind of political activities. So you may have like these kind of like issues, or political and social issues or phenomena you need to examine, and you need to have like theoretical approaches and kind of methodological tools in order to answer these questions. So we have been talking about like surveys, and I need to just to introduce you to some survey data to visualize what surveys are and what actually like comparativists would do with these with the information, or with the available data. Have you heard of the word values survey data?
Yes.
Okay. So this is like the website, and you can access at any time and actually familiarize yourself with the data. So if you need, I selected Egypt because I've got like a few questions about the uprisings of 25th of January. So if you are interested in Egypt, and I don't know how much knowledge you developed about this period, but you have like some sort of survey data that would offer you some data and information about citizen attitudes and values and behavior. You can examine like citizens' behavior as well. So if you need to examine whether or not like nowadays, like recently, Egyptians are they have like trust or high degree of confidence in political parties. So you have like here list of questions that they actually measure or examine confidence in different institutions like media, or civic like civil society associations, or labor unions, and state institutions like the police, or the judicial system, or the courts, and the government, and political parties and parliament, and even in the elections, whether or not people like trust or have like confidence in the electoral processes, or in particular political institutions. Here, if you need like to examine, if you're interested in this trust in political parties, for like you have like about why people, for example, get disillusioned or actually refrain from participating or engaging in political parties. For example, you have this question, and you need to get some information about people's attitudes or citizens' attitudes about regarding this this theme or this issue. So you have here you have the level, the confidence level in political parties, and you see like people who responded that none at all, that they didn't have any kind of confidence at all in political parties. They are roughly more than half of the sample. It's like it's 55%. So people don't have like trust in political parties. So that's why perhaps the most probably, if they don't trust political parties, so most probably they don't have like any kind of membership, or they don't develop any kind of partisan identification. Maybe you need to examine like the level of political participations or different forms of political participation in particular year or over a long period of time. So you can have like questions. They ask respondents whether or not they are active or inactive in particular organizations or particular civic associations. So you have here questions regarding the membership in labor unions, membership in political parties, membership in, if you need to examine what kind of values, people may develop over time. So here you have like the membership in environmental organization, like these kind of charitable organization like mutual aid group or self-help group. If you need to examine whether or not like people are interested in feminist cause or some sort of feminist issues, so you need to examine to what extent they have confidence or they are members in women's groups. If you need to examine different forms or means of political participation and to what extent people believe in conventional or unconventional means of political participation. So you have here like a list of questions would help you get some sense of like this political behavior or the parameter of the political participation, whether or not they would sign a petition, they would resort to boycotting or joining, in boycotts in order to articulate their demands or to vocalize or to voice their opinion. They might get engaged in attending, lawful or peaceful demonstrations. Like contacting a government official. So if they believe or trust, they trust a government, so they might have a contact with their parliamentary representative in order to push for their demands or to articulate their own grievances. So you have like list of questions, signing like electronic petition if they believe that it might be helpful in order to disseminate or in order to spread, the word or to highlight or to frame a cause. So it depends on the question or the issue you need to investigate. So you have like a particular question to formulate, and then some sort of theoretical approach that would help you answer the question. And you need like tools in order to get methodological tools in order to get some information and data that would help you articulate your argument or build your argument and to marshal evidence in order to answer your question. There is another like survey data. It would be like good if you access the website and to take a look at the data there. This is the Arab parameter survey data. So you have here from this menu, so you have like the survey data and you can get access to the survey questions or the code book. If you need to understand Egyptians' political behavior or political culture after in 2011 and from 2011 until 2013. So during this period when like wide masses or like large segments of society like got politicized. So you need to avail yourself of, or you have a question and you need to get some information or data about Egyptians or citizens' political behavior, electoral or different forms of political participation, what kind of political parties they would support, degree of trust in different, political actors or different political players, degree of trust in state institutions. So whatever the question you have in your head, so you can like start gathering information or data to help you answer the question under investigation. So here, so you might be interested in like the issues or the priorities or the policy preferences of people in Egypt during that period. So there's a question about the most important the most important challenge in the Arab world currently faces. So you need to examine like people's orientations or understanding and knowledge about the most important challenge that that faced, you know, the Arab region at the time. So you have here like list of problems or challenges, and you can examine the percentages or how many actually respondents perceive that the economic situation is like the most important challenge, or democracy or dictatorship is the most important challenge during that period. Palestine cause is the most important issue, or the persisting issue that the Arab region faced. So you need like, or strengthen, they did care about, you know, democratic demands or strengthening democracy or more, or the economic situation or poverty more. So you need like to examine like the distribution of like policy preferences and what kind of issues or priorities citizens actually had during that, or in this specific year or during that period. Or you may have a question regarding this political participation and definition of democracy. So perhaps they may have different definition of democracy. Is it related to fair and regular and free elections that would enable like a transfer of power and would guarantee a high level of political and civic freedoms to citizens? Or they may define this in economic and social terms, like providing, you know, basic items like housing and food. So you need to, it depends on what kind of issue or what kind of values you need to measure, or you need to get information on. So you have like some survey data that would help you gather some information about this, and in order to help you answer the question you have. Okay, guys? So now you got the idea what are like the surveys, and what can we do with this, like what kind of questions, you know, you can focus on, and it all depends on the issue or the phenomenon you need to examine or you need to investigate.
Yes, doctor.
Okay, so you have like, if you need to test like or to examine political knowledge, for example, if you have like some questions about the exposure to media or sources where from where, you know, people would get their information about political events. So the frequency of following, you know, local media, or like where they might get the news or the knowledge or understanding of the political events from, like local media or foreign media. So you have like, if you need to test, you know, this kind of cognition or political cognition or the level of political knowledge and understanding, so you may have like different questions in order to that would help you measure this. And then you can like come up with this conclusion that they value economic issues, or they didn't care about, you know, perhaps like electoral participation, and they don't care more about this kind of low intensity political participation. They may have like they don't have trust in the existing, you know, political processes, so that's why they refrain from any sort of political participation. Or it depends on the variables you did choose, or you picked in order to examine the causality between them. Or perhaps that they don't trust, you know, the political players or the existing political parties, so that's why they didn't believe at all in the existing, you know, political establishment at the time. So it depends on, it all depends on the question you have for you're doing a research. Okay, so this is like important for your the questions for your term papers. So you have like question, and you need two things. You need theory to help you like understand and to filter out what kind of information that would help you, like what kind of causality you have between your dependent and independent variables. And you need tools, methodological tools like interviews or ethnography or survey data or statistical tools that would help you answer this question, or to marshal evidence that support your argument and to answer your question. So this is regarding to the political culture and political participation. So with the same kind of attitudinal data and political behavior, so the foundation is that would motivate and actually stimulate any kind of voting behavior or political behavior. So the first thing is the level of knowledge and the level of knowledge and understanding you have, and the interest you develop in political processes. And that's why you may have kind of a political decision or political act. So you might sign a petition, you might participate in elections, you might participate in peaceful demonstrations. So it depends on the level of knowledge and interest you have. This would motivate you to take particular political action. So like one major trend actually that actually limit the analysis to the Western democracies. So they focus mainly on voting behavior. So why people would vote for particular candidates or particular parties. Can you guys remind me about Down? When we tackled rational choice, one of the applications of rational choice.
I think, Doctor, he said that they will vote for a certain party because it maximizes their utility, or
Yeah.
or the, what?
Who's talking, Nihal or?
I'm Lubna.
Lubna, yeah. Go ahead, Lubna.
They will vote for a certain party because it will maximize their utility, or they will achieve the something that they want.
Yeah, as a rational actor, so they need to maximize their material well-being. So they vote for political parties that would maximize, their kind of material benefits, right?
Yes, Doctor.
And this is from like the viewpoint or from the position of the voters. But from the position of political parties, what kind of rationality we talked about?
That they will go to the center, not the extreme right or the extreme left, to maximize their votes.
So they advocate kind of policies that would attract or maximize, voters, or make them approachable or closer to the median voter.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, exactly. So from like this tradition, but you have like different angles or different perspectives that actually studied, voting behavior from like the voter perspective and from political parties' positions as well. So as he mentioned as well, like political parties are would offer like informational device for voters, because like as a rational player, as a rational actor, voters as rational actors, so they might be less informed or ignorant about politics. It's irrational to gather information about all candidates or all political parties, and then you make your calculations about the benefits or utility maximization, and then you decide to vote for that party or for this party or that party. So that's why ideology or left and right dimension would offer a kind of informational device or cue for voters in order to vote for political parties that are closer to their policy preferences or their decisions. So political beliefs and ideologies are essential in kind of like putting the Downsian model aside now, like these kind of political environment and political ideologies may shape the voters' preferences. So this kind of politicization of the environment may trigger or like create, some sort of determine some sort of the salience of particular policy preferences or voting for particular candidates or political parties. And in Western democracies, it was like a conventional wisdom that people, they don't have any interest in politics beyond like voting in elections. But like with kind of structural changes in the level of education and the exposure to different media outlets and this technological revolutions, so that the literature started to talk about the sophisticated voter, or kind of more sophisticated citizens, that they actually developed interest in politics beyond the voting process. So it's not limited to this period, the period of the elections. So they are interested in politics generally speaking, or political events generally speaking. So you need to examine what kind of like sources of cognitive mobilization as a researcher or as a comparativist. So you need not only to examine the voting behavior, but you need to highlight or to focus on this political cognition, or what they call like cognitive mobilization, where people get the information from, as I mentioned, from the media, or from affiliation with political parties or civic associations or civil society groups or civil society organizations. So you need to get some sort of sources of this kind of sophistication and civic and cognitive mobilization. And some sort of with the changing environment or circumstances and surroundings as well. So elites are no longer responsible for mobilizing participants. So it's not only like the elites would shape people's or citizens' preferences. In some countries, and especially Western democracies, citizens actually started to challenge the existing elites, or what Dalton mentioned, like elite challenging participation. So it's not of, it goes like the opposite way around, like citizens developed their own way of understanding. They may have like different various or diverse sources of cognitive mobilization. So that's why they may challenge the existing establishment or the existing political elites, and they would affect correspondingly the political processes and the decision-making processes. So you have here different approaches or different theoretical approaches that would help you understand this kind of cognitive mobilization. So you have like a schema theory. So even if unsophisticated voters or unsophisticated citizens, if you need to examine their policy preferences or the evaluation of particular political candidates, or like their support or rejection of political decisions or policy decisions, so you need to examine this kind of cognitive mobilization processes, what kind of logically structured beliefs these citizens may have. So perhaps they have like this kind of like clear outlines or clear logical structures inside their head regarding religion, regarding foreign policy, or regarding perhaps like priority of social and economic policies. So so the religious affiliation of the political candidate is very important for them. So they may evaluate different political candidates based on this kind of schema regarding religion. So they may vote for religious candidates. They may prefer, they make up their mind regarding different political candidates, and they vote for the one with some sort of level of affiliation with like church or religious group. Or you may need to examine what kind of cognitive heuristics, meaning what kind of informational shortcut citizens may have, especially like, as I mentioned, political parties, they offer informational device for political for citizens or voters in order to make up their mind, or in order to evaluate different political candidates, and then they would push them for voting. Or you need to examine what kind of political institutions or institutional structure that may affect, citizens' perceptions and eventually their subsequently their political behavior or voting behavior or political participation. So, for example, like social cleavages, like affiliation to particular like tribes or different in tribal societies, for example, or in highly polarized or a high level of social cleavages between different political parties along like left, right, Islamist, non-Islamist. This kind of polarization or this kind of structure, institutional structures would affect, citizens' perception about politics, and this would subsequently motivate them to take or to take particular political action or to refrain from taking political action. In Egypt, for example, if you need to examine whether or not partisan identification, this kind of psychological or psychosociological approach would help you analyze why people in 2012 voted for some presidential candidates, or they made up their mind regarding voting for evaluating different presidential candidates. So you may need to examine, this kind of candidates' religiosity in order to examine to what extent, like the Brotherhood electoral constituencies, for example, voted for Morsi, like the Brotherhood candidate, or the candidate's political party or affiliation. So people, they may develop, some sort of partisan identification. So I don't know, perhaps like leftist or nationalist. So that's why they voted for Khalid Ali or Hamdin Sabahi. Or like the candidate is from your family or tribe or relatives. So I don't know, like supposedly you had like, a different candidate that in a tribal society in Yemen or in these kind of the prevailing of this kind of tribal structure in these countries. So they may vote for a candidate that they are the candidates that that's affiliated or is a member, from their tribe or from their family. So you need to know like what kind of information or the processes of queuing, people may resort to in order to get their knowledge or to develop their own understanding, and subsequently they take particular political action, in this case like voting for evaluating different political candidates and then selecting from these political candidates. And then if you need to examine their sources of political knowledge, so you have like questions regarding like media, the frequency or how frequent actually they read like newspapers, local or foreign newspapers, whether or not the what kind of websites or internet sources they may resort to, or in order to develop or to gain, some sort of knowledge about political events. So it depends on if you really care about, political behavior or attitudes or mass behavior. So you have like different sort of topics you may be interested in, like what kind of political culture or political values, what forms of political participation people may resort to, what kind of political cognition or the cognitive mobilization processes citizens may have. So you need to identify different sources, and eventually like the voting behavior, why they opt for particular political parties or particular political candidates, and or selecting one over another. Okay, guys?
Okay, doctor.
Okay, so now you understand, what survey as a tool means, and what kind of like themes or variables you need to measure from these questions?
Yes.
Okay. So try to come up with a question that's puzzling, or actually you're interested in, like any kind of question from your context or from other context related to this attitudes and political behavior. So what kind of question or like issue you may be interested in, and you need actually to do your research on this topic? I think you will have to write a research proposal this semester, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you already thought about like topics or research questions to work on?
Yes, doctor. We took this in the methodology course.
Yeah, I'm just asking you, try to come up with a question that's related to like political attitudes and political behavior that you may be interested in a particular context, like in Egypt or in other country.
Why people vote to specific candidate or specific party rather than the others?
Yeah, I need like more specific question. If you followed like the American elections, for example, if you're interested in what kind of
why people vote for the Democratic candidates while others vote for the Republicans?
This is general, but yeah, if you're interested in this topic, okay, so this is like a general topic, okay, what kind of tools, you may resort to in order to collect information that would help you answer this question before getting to the theory part?
Ethnography.
Yeah, why?
Survey.
Statistical analysis.
Questionnaire.
Yeah, it's not like, try to elaborate on your answer. What are you going to do with this tool, like with the statistical analysis or with ethnography, for example?
I guess it help you with ethnography. We will examine a human's life, culture life.
Say it again.
يعني الإثنوغرافي المقصود بيها إن إحنا بنexamine الculture life يعني الhuman lives عامة.
Yeah. So let me. This will take us to a different. If you need to examine like the voting behavior in a particular state that used to vote like for example, Republicans, and eventually they voted for the Democratic candidate. So it would be like a puzzling to know the change of the voting behavior, or what the literature says, like this kind of de-alignment or realignment behavior. So we're going to take about this shortly, but just focus on these kind of political culture or voting behavior or political participation. So you have like three like sub themes. You need to you can select one, and you need to examine like factors or what variables that independent variables that actually led to this dependent variable or the outcome variable. So let's say the outcome variable. If you are interested in Egypt, so you can like select some examples from Egypt. So what's like the outcome variable you need to examine? What's really problematic and you need to understand.
Doctor, can we say
تاني
Okay, so regarding these attitudes and political behavior, voting behavior or political participation, okay? What kind of, try to think about a problem, some sort of political outcome that's really problematic or puzzling, for you, and you need to examine regarding, citizens' attitudes or political behavior.
Doctor, can we say back to 2009 and 2010 why people continued to vote to the national party
In the parliamentary elections, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, so voting for autocracies or the one dominant party system in 2010 elections. Okay?
Okay.
So you need to, and supposedly there is kind of high turnout, like high rate of turnout. People actually voted for NDP's candidates. So try to think about, independent variables that would account for this outcome variable. Voting for autocratic candidates. So what kind of independent variables you need to examine?
Maybe the other parties were weak, so people choose to vote to the national party.
So one independent variable is lack of credible or strong opposition parties.
Maybe they paid for people to vote for them.
Vote buying. Okay, very good.
What the media is showing about this specific party.
Yeah, like this kind of media framing or that affected, the level of understanding and the knowledge of citizens.
Yes.
Okay, and if you're interested in these variables, so this is like a good start. So you have like research problem or question, a topic like voting for autocratic candidates or voting for autocracies or authoritarian parties, and then you formulate your puzzling question or research question, like in this particular elections, why people actually voted for, in this like electoral constituencies, they voted for NDP's candidates. And then you have like some independent variables you need to examine, like the leverage of political oppositions or credibility of political oppositions, vote buying. It's kind of rational calculations of voters that would maximize their utility or maximize their material benefits. And what other? What's the third variable you talked about, guys?
The media.
The media, yeah, the cognitive mobilization that actually affected, the knowledge or the exposure to the of different candidates to the public. So one crucial step. So before the theory, so what kind of tools you need in order to gather information or to collect information or data regarding these factors or variables?
Surveys.
I think in this case, surveys will be better.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you can select like relevant questions that would ask people about their confidence in political opposition, whether or not they really stand chance in 2010 or 2009. They did stand chance, of winning. What kind of if there is a question, would ask people about what kind of benefits, you know, the NDP would offer, you know, to them. So, or what kind of challenges, you know, they may find, you know, in their electoral constituencies. So you need to select questions that actually would help you measure or answer the questions. Okay.
Okay.
Another step, another important step, and that's why we have like theories of comparative politics. You need like theoretical approach that would tell you how X causes Y, if you are like behavioralist or post-behavioralist. Okay. So you have like you believe in this causality, and you need to examine, you need theoretical approach or theoretical perspective that would tell you how vote buying would affect the voting behavior of Egyptians, or voting for the one dominant party system. So what kind of theoretical tool I may resort to, or might be useful or helpful to unravel, you know, this kind of mechanisms about the causality mechanisms, X causes Y.
Dependency theory.
How? So you're saying that vote buying is like the main cause that affects the outcome, like the voting behavior of people in Egypt, like vote buying and voting for NDPs candidates. Yeah, try to think about like theoretical foundation that would help you understand how X vote buying causes Y. Voting.
I could use deduction.
Theory, like regardless of the logic of building your argument. Okay, what's an induction? How induction would help you develop your theoretical.
لا, rational theory can help us in this case because يعني being rational X can cause Y as a, يعني مثلا if my interest is to get benefits from this party, as مثلا they buy my votes, so I will take money, this is my benefit, so here I'm being rational, so X causes Y.
Yeah, so you see that like it has to be kind of relevant, it has to be actually relevant to the topic, and it actually would it has to help you answer, or it has to answer, you know, the question you actually posed. If you focus on this media and cognitive mobilization, okay, like media or like the state media or independent media or whatever, you focus exactly on state media, for example, and how this would affect voting for NDP's candidates. So what kind of theories or theoretical approaches you may have in order to answer this, the political behavior or the voting behavior of citizens in particular elections?
I'm not sure, but I think culture theory can help in this case.
Yeah. So what I want to say here is you have like these kind of like the overarching or the big umbrellas regarding like rational choice, and you have like different applications in rational choice. Okay. And you have this kind of cultural or structural school, and you have like different theoretical approaches you need to like the literature actually developed and you can use in order to answer at this stage, in order to answer your research questions. So here you may have this kind of like how there is in the literature actually how like media framing or media priming, for example, would help you understand why the mobilization of voters for NDP's candidates. Okay, so you see like how they are, it's kind of closely or interlinked process that they are not separable. Like the tools you use, the question actually you pose in the very beginning, and then the selection of your theoretical approach, and then the tools you need to you resort to in order to collect data or to marshal evidence to help you build your own argument. So you guys got the main idea now?
Yes,
Yes,
doctor.
doctor.
Okay.
دكتور
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting. رحمة علاء بس عندها مشكلة في الكونكشن
Connection.
فكان thank you doctor.
Okay. So from like these kind of different issues or different sub-themes in attitudes and political behavior, so we focus mainly, as I mentioned in the beginning, on two main themes in comparative politics. So we focus on, guys, can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So I have like terrible connections, internet connection, so that's why I have to check every now and then. So actually, voting behavior and party system, and mass behavior and contentious trajectories, as I mentioned. Back to your introduction to political science. What are like political parties, and what does it mean? What we how can we define party system?
A group of
It's a
people
group
who seek to influence the political system.
Okay, so it's kind of
they share
like-minded people. Yeah,
they share the same ideology. Doctor, do you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. Karma?
And they seek power, like they want to get into office.
Yeah, so it's kind of,
They have a program.
yeah, regardless of the ideology, because it's kind of debatable in the literature, so whether or not we can still like define politics or structure, this kind of along left-right dimension, but they have like some sort of common policy programs or political platforms, so they may like campaign on in order to represent people or to aggregate their demands. They seek office, and once they reach power, they may like transform these political promises or electoral promises into actual policy programs or public policies. So what's party system?
Like they can be a single party or two parties or like a plural system of parties.
Yeah, it's kind of the relationship between, it's a system, so it's kind of it examines like the relationship between the components of this overall system. It's kind of the analogy you had, it's like the party system is like a forest and parties are like trees. Okay, so you have like this kind of interaction between the components of this system, like different political parties that would shape this the main characteristics of this party system. So you can classify, you can make like different classifications, or you can classify party systems according to ideologies. So you have like leftist parties and rightist parties, and then from this classification, so you can see whether or not this system is ideologically polarized or not, or it depends on the number of political parties. So you can someone talked about this, like, so you can have like one dominant party system if you have only one party, or you have like two party systems like the United States, like the Republicans and the Democrats, or you have like a multi-party system, like if you have like different political parties competing for political powers, like, as in different countries in Western Europe, like France, for example. So you have like it depends on the number. You have like different different elements or different criteria against which you can classify or you can specify the main characteristics of party systems. So the main problem or issue we examine in this course is how actually we examine what's puzzling, this kind of formation of political parties and the stability or the breakdown of the particular party systems, and how like voting behavior affect over time actually affected the collapse or the breakdown of party systems or the stability of party systems. So try to guess or try to imagine if we need to talk about like continuity or stability of party system. So what kind of factors would account for this stability of party systems? Hopefully we can finish this today, and next lecture we can cover the mass behavior and contentious trajectories or contentious politics. So hopefully like voting behavior and party system, or half of it.
The degree of certification of citizens, if the citizens are satisfied for this party or not.
So if voters like keep voting for the existing or the traditional political parties, so this would actually stabilize the system, right?
Yes, right.
So scholars actually, or comparativists, try to examine the stability or instability of party systems, and we focus mainly on Western European countries. So for a long period of time, they cared about this stability of party systems, and then some sort of a structural or some sort of social and economic changes led to changing some sort of a changes in the party systems. In our like discussions, I'm going to refer to the US and some European countries. So you have, in order to examine it in the Western European countries, like one of the path-breaking, studies about the stability of party systems in Western European countries, especially in the first half of the 20th century, it was like Lepston-Rukan study about frozen cleavages. So they offered some sort of sociological explanation about the formation of party systems. So what's the central argument is some structural and economic changes led to building or changes in the social groups or the support base of political parties, and created some social cleavages. And these social cleavages actually led to the formation of political parties that shaped the entire system for a long period of time. So what happened in the after with the processes of the centralizing, the authority or the modernization and establishing the modern nation state? So it entails kind of establishing central administrative structure or bureaucracy to centralize, the authority, and then to erode, the religious authority of the church. And this is like one structural variable that led to some social transformations or radical transformations and created different social cleavages. And then the industrialization that created different other of social cleavages, and then gave way to the formation of different political parties to represent, these new issues and to represent new social groups. So the centralization of power and the establishment or the modern nation state, and with these kind of secular values, this created like cleavages along territorial and religious lines. So this centralization of power triggered some sort of social conflicts and rejection or resistance from the church. this led to like, you know, the division or social cleavages centered around centralization or like these kind of territorial divisions, like people proponents of or supporters of centralized authority or centralization or decentralization, and then clerical and anti-clerical stand, social like division. And then with the industrialization, it led to like some sort of class cleavages or class divisions between different social groups. So on the one hand, between like the transformation from the agricultural dominated structure or system to industrialization, this created like conflict of interest between landed elites or landowners and industrialists. So for example, industrialists, they needed actually to integrate into the global market, so they need like free trade, so they need to remove any kind of tariffs or protectionist policies that would affect their wealth or their effort, you know, to accumulate wealth. And even between industrialists, it triggered, you know, some sort of divisions between protectionists that they are kind of inward oriented, that they need some sort of protection from the state policies in order not to, because they are not able to cope with the international competition, and other like, you know, big industries or large scale industries that already have like international edge or internationally competitive, so they actually supported free trade measures. So these kind of social, economic and social transformations created, you know, different sort of political parties to represent, you know, these kind of religious and territorial or urban, rural, or geographical and class divisions between landowners and industrialists or capitalists and workers. So they developed, and actually these divisions actually got frozen over time in order to represent these new social groups or new social interests. So the central point here, if you're a worker, so you may have you translate automatically your interest in protecting your rights, you know, to strike, or rights to some social and pension benefits or pay increase. So you would vote for leftist parties, for example. So this kind of these kind of social coalitions or the support base of political parties is stabilized over a long period of time, because like this kind, it represented, you know, these at the time newly emerging, you know, social cleavages that actually over time frozen the party system because of the voting behavior of these social groups, that if they were conservative, so they supported, you know, this religious oriented, you know, candidates or political conservative parties. If they are like nonconformist, so they may vote for anti-clerical political parties. So depending on these kind of social cleavages or social interest, so voters actually kept voting for, or they called it voter alignment. So they aligned with particular political parties, and they voted, you know, for these parties over a long period of time. So this would help you understand the formation of the stability of the party system that actually changed over time. Another explanation of this formation of political parties, institutional rules. You will learn more about this next year in your course on Western comparative politics, but for now, if you have certain institutional and electoral rules, that this would shape, you know, the party system or the main characteristics of the party system. So if you have like majoritarian system, do you know what's majoritarian system is? I think perhaps you touched upon this in the introduction to political science, but I'm not sure.
No, we didn't.
You didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have like this kind of electoral rule saying that if I divide you into hypothetically different electoral constituencies, like the first like 10, this one is now we have like 50, so I can divide you into like 5 electoral constituencies, 10 each. So and the electoral and the constitutional rule is and then like students, you know, at FEPS, like Egyptians, you know, would vote for different candidates in these electoral constituencies. So in the first one, we have like Malak, Yara, and Karma, okay, for Giza, for example. And then people would vote for you, and according to the rule, if anyone, like any particular candidate, actually gains the majority of the votes, like the first past the post system, like whatever, like it doesn't necessarily 50% plus one. So if Malak actually gained 35% of the votes comparing to Yara and Karma, so she will get the position, okay. Another institutional rule, for example, proportional representation. So I have like certain rules or complications that would say this political party or the candidate of this political party, if Malak actually gets, or Karma actually, if even like it didn't get like the majority of the votes, but one certain threshold, like 5% of the votes, so I divide, you know, the seats in proportion to the votes, you know, you guys got in the elections. So if we have like 9 seats, for example, so it depends on the percentage of votes, you know, you got in the election. So I allocate seats regarding to in proportion to the votes you got in the elections. So this is called, like, these are the most common ones, like the majoritarian and the proportional representation rules. So the point here is not like the rules per se, but how these rules would shape the party system. So if you have this majoritarian system, so try to guess what kind of party system you may have. You don't have any kind of incentives, or you stand no chance to get some sort of political representation, like in proportion,
one dominant party,
or it's kind of like two-party system. It's like two big parties would dominate the like the political scene. So we're talking about Western democracies, okay, guys? Like proportional representation would favor, or it offers like incentive structures for multiple party systems. So you cannot, like, if you have different policy program, and in this proportional representation, if you get like, if you manage to surpass, you know, this electoral threshold, so you may have like some seats in the parliament or in the legislature. So you don't have any incentive to have a coalition with another big party, or to dilute, you know, your different policy programs or different political platforms, and to get merged, you know, with another political party, because you have like a chance in order to get represented within, you know, the existing institutional rules or institutional structures, or electoral rules, or legal and constitutional rules. So this actually, so you have like different interpretation about the formation of the party system, and you have as well, like especially in the United States, people like psychologically they are loyal to the political parties, so they develop this kind of partisan identification, Republican or Democrat, out of these kind of psychological attachment to a particular political party or a particular party label. So you have like different interpretation. It could be like in order to interpret the formation of the political parties. But again, like these kind of institutional, psychological, sociological, that would help us understand the formation of political parties, would help. These explanations actually don't help us understand the breakdown of the party system, because what's puzzling that these kind of frozen cleavages and these kind of stability of institutional rules didn't help scholars or comparativists to understand changes in values, or people actually detached from the existing or the traditional political parties, and they started, supporting other political parties, especially in Western Europe. So that's why comparativists they had like this double focus on political parties and voters in order to understand the stability of, as Malak mentioned, if you keep voting for political parties, so I need to understand why you keep voting for this political party and how this political party over and over again advocate policies that actually these policies appeal to the wide masses or the wide electoral constituencies that actually kept voting for their candidates, the party's candidates. So in order to understand like the political behavior or the voting behavior of the masses or the citizens in Western democracies, so they tried to understand or to investigate and examine the changes of these attitudes and voting behavior of citizens, and the adaptability or the political position, or the position of the policy space, the position on the policy space of these political parties. So the literature tried to have like this kind of dual focus on parties and voters, and this kind of to look deeper into the nexus, this party voter nexus, and to understand the mechanisms by which voters would align or de-align or realign themselves from the existing political parties, and how political parties actually adapted to the changing environment or changing circumstances, and with the emergence of the new issues. Okay, so let me finish this and then I leave it there. So for voters, as I mentioned, and as you mentioned, guys, when we studied down about policy preferences, this spatial model and the position of different political parties along left and right axis. As you mentioned, this kind of people would vote for political parties that they are these political parties are the closest, to their policy preferences, or this kind of calculations of utility maximization. So the one trend in the literature focused on this issue congruence along this left-right dimension, and the main assumption, as we mentioned before, this kind of trend or stream in the literature postulates that people may have these kind of fixed preferences, that these preferences are exogenous to the partisan competition and the political competition processes. Another trend of the literature tried to understand how these policy preferences or voters' preferences are shaped and determined actually that they are internal or endogenous to the process of political competition. And it's kind of directional voting, how actually these preferences are shaped in the process of partisan competition. But both of them, they actually, they have like the same mechanisms with regard to the policy or the distribution of the policy preferences. So they have the same mechanisms for political parties in order to advocate or to endorse some policy programs or particular policies in order to maximize their votes along, this kind of ideological lines between left and right. But what happened, again, like these explanations wouldn't help us understand, the changes or some serious transformations actually happened in the existing party systems in Western democracies, and voting and the distribution of policy preferences of different voters there. So that's why there's some sort of changes pushed some studies in order to have this kind of double focus on voter parties relationship by developing, you know, these kind of notions about alignment and de-alignment. So what kind of changes that actually triggered this kind of voter detachment from existing political parties and the formation of different political parties? So like generally speaking, there are kind of different like demographic trends with this kind of urbanization and industrialization. So it led to different social mobility and transformation of the like occupational mobility that actually diluted or eroded, you know, this traditional division between left and right, or this class-based voting. So with this kind of social mobility that emerged from urbanization or high level of education, so the cleavages are no longer limited to this class voting or left and right dimension. Again, like some sort of international circumstances with the collapse of the Soviet Union and the collapse of the communism that actually discredited, you know, the ideological foundation of some leftist parties that made, you know, again, like this class-based voting less salient in some countries. Some new issues actually emerged, and they talked about, you know, this post-materialism that people actually developed some sort of new issues regarding nuclear weapons, for example, or environmental issues. So that's why leftist parties, they developed some sort of new issues or different coalitions with the Green parties in order to articulate different policy programs in order to respond to these new issues or to articulate these new demands. Some sort of non-class or cross-class cleavages. Some sort of regional cleavages, for example, in Spain, like in Barcelona or other, like, you know, wealthy regions. So they started, you know, to develop some demands for autonomy in order to have full control over their economic resources or economic wealth. It's not like well-educated people, they may develop, you know, some interest in like cross-cutting, you know, issues like they might believe in liberal economy or downsizing the role of the state in the economy, while preferring, you know, some sort of social spending in particular welfare programs or social programs. So it's not that strict between left and right, and the issue dimensions became like varied or much more much more like, you know, multidimensional rather than limited to this kind of strict ideological division between left and right. And this is like for the voters, and this led to the emergence of new parties that actually affected, you know, the calculations and the behavior of different citizens and different voters and political parties as well. These changes actually affected, you know, the political parties. So some of them managed to adapt and to develop, you know, to change, you know, their policy positions or to develop different political platforms or different policy programs in order to attract new masses or new voters or these kind of new electoral constituencies. And others actually they managed, so that's why they actually disappeared. Or this kind of technological advances that marketing and this kind of advances in media, this affected, you know, the organizational capacity, not only like the preferences of the voters, that they got exposed to different alternatives or different policy programs, so they exert no effort, you know, gathering, you know, these kind of information about political parties or political candidates. They have like exposure to different media outlets, so they have like the internet, so they have like different sources to get, you know, their the information or to develop their own way of understanding. On the one hand, and on the other hand, these developments or these changes actually affected the organizational capacity of the political parties. So before, so they had to establish some sort of local branches or extensive, organizational structure in order to attract masses or to appeal to so they have like, complicated or sophisticated organizational structure and extensive, organizational branches or local branches in different areas in order to campaign during the elections and to attract, more, to maximize, their votes during the election periods. With this kind of marketing advancement or technological advancement or marketing techniques, so they may develop like they have like their own media channel, for example. So they have like, online platform to campaign on, so they no longer need to like manpower or actual, organizational extensive organizational networks in order to count or to rely on during the elections in order to attract voters. So in order to understand these changes, so the some studies focused on this kind of transformation or in the distribution of policy preferences of voters on the one hand, and this organizational changes or the organizational capacity of political parties or the degree of adaptability of political parties on the other hand, and both together would help us account for why some political parties managed to stabilize and while others eventually broke down. So we'll continue on next lecture. So we'll finish, this preferences draft and organizational or capacity changes with this double focus on political parties and voters in order to examine changes in voting behavior and party system in Western democracies. And then we'll focus on another form or type of mass behavior, which is contentious behavior or different unconventional means of political participation and different political outcomes or different the effect on their effect on different political outcomes from revolutionary or regime endurance or regime change next time. And we tackle this from different theoretical perspectives. Okay, guys?
Okay, Doctor.
Okay, so meanwhile, if you have like any not regarding your answer, whether or not you have to write this, but if you have like, if you need to clarify, if you need to make sure about if you understand the question correctly, so you can email me, okay? And don't count on like, someone would email me and I say something and then on your WhatsApp group, like you start like circulating, the message, and everyone may have his or her own understanding. If you have a specific question, just, personally or individually, just email me, okay?
Okay, Doctor.
Yeah, because from my experience, if you develop like, if you have like, these are the point, if you develop this kind of consensus regarding your answer, if someone like got it wrong and would disseminate it or circulate this, to you all, would have like the same answer at the end of the day. Okay, so and please, like, it's an individual assignment, so try to think through the question and the organization of your answer independently of your colleagues. Okay?
Okay, Doctor.
Okay, guys. So see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.